It was a quiet evening, and the sun was just starting to set, casting a soft orange glow across the streets. A young boy, around 19, was walking home after finishing his shift at a small local store. He was tired but satisfied with his work. He carried a small backpack and wore simple clothes, but there was a calm confidence in his steps, a quiet sense of responsibility that made him stand out. He had grown up learning that helping others and working hard were more important than worrying about what people thought of him. As he turned the corner onto a quieter road, he noticed a car pulled over on the side, a luxury car with sleek lines and a shiny finish. The driver was leaning over the front wheel, looking frustrated. He could see that the tire was flat, and she seemed unsure of what to do next. He had seen this kind of situation before in his neighborhood, and he knew how difficult it could be for someone alone to deal with a car problem. Without thinking much, he walked over, keeping a respectful distance, and called out gently, "Hey, do you need some help?" She looked up, slightly startled. She was in her early 20s, dressed neatly in business casual clothes, her hair tied back in a tidy bun. There was a hint of irritation in her eyes, but also a flash of relief when she saw him. She hesitated for a moment, as if unsure whether to trust a stranger. I think so," she said finally. "I don't really know how to change a tire." The boy smiled, trying to put her at ease. "No worries. I can help you. It's not a big deal." She nodded, and he moved closer. He opened the trunk to get the spare tire and the jack. He worked efficiently, his hands steady and sure. While he worked, he spoke in a friendly tone, making small talk to ease the tension. "Do you come this way often?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not really. I was just on my way to a meeting and then this happened. I guess I'm having a bit of bad luck today." He chuckled softly. "Flat tires can happen to anyone. At least it happened here where I could help." She smiled faintly, appreciating his calm attitude. There was something different about him, something genuine that made her feel comfortable. He didn't act like he was doing her a favor out of obligation. He was just genuinely helping. As he loosened the lug nuts and began to lift the car with the jack, she watched, fascinated by how focused and confident he was. While he worked, he shared a little about himself. "I just finished my shift at the store. It's not much, but it helps my family. We try to make things work, you know." His voice was casual, but there was a hint of pride in what he said. She noticed the sincerity behind his words, the way he didn't complain, but instead spoke with quiet strength. She nodded, intrigued. "That's really admirable." "It must be hard sometimes," he shrugged slightly. "It has its moments. But I believe in helping where I can, and making the best of what you have. Life's easier if you don't make it harder than it needs to be." She thought about her own life. She had grown up wealthy and had always been surrounded by comfort. But that comfort often came with pressure and expectations. Watching him, she felt a strange sense of admiration and even envy. Here was someone so young yet so grounded and capable. It was a perspective she rarely encountered in her world. The boy worked methodically, explaining what he was doing in simple terms. He was careful not to overwhelm her with technical details, but made it clear that he knew what he was doing. He tightened the spare tire, checked the pressure, and made sure everything was secure. Throughout it all, he maintained a relaxed, friendly demeanor, never making her feel awkward or out of place. By the time he finished, the sun had dipped lower, and the streetlights were starting to flicker on. He wiped his hands on a rag he had in his pocket and stepped back, smiling. "There you go. You should be good to go now." She looked at the tire, then back at him, her expression softening. "Thank you. I honestly don't know what I would have done without you." He shrugged modestly. "It was nothing, really. Just glad I could help." For a moment there was silence between them, comfortable and unforced. She noticed his eyes, dark and kind, and the way he seemed genuinely interested in the people around him. It was rare to meet someone so sincere, especially in her life where appearances often mattered more than character. Curiosity got the better of her, and she asked, "Do you live around here?" "Yeah, not too far. Just down that street," he said, pointing. "I like to help out when I can, you know. Makes the day feel a little better." She nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't expected. It's a rare quality. Someone who just helps without wanting anything in return. "Most people would ignore me or assume I can handle it myself." He smiled again. "People are different, I guess. Some of us like to help. It makes life better." They talked a little longer about simple things, school, work, favorite foods, even the little things that made them laugh. She found herself genuinely enjoying the conversation. It was refreshing to talk to someone who saw the world in such a grounded way. He wasn't impressed by her wealth, and she wasn't intimidated by his humble background. They were just two people connecting in a moment of real life. Eventually, she glanced at her watch and realized she needed to leave for her meeting. "I should probably get going, but I really appreciate your help." "I won't forget this," he nodded. "Take care and drive safely, and don't stress too much about life. Things usually work out." She smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. "I think I could learn a lot from you," he laughed softly. "Maybe. Or maybe you just need to slow down once in a while." With a final wave, she started her car, now safely back on the road. He watched her drive off, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had helped someone in need, and in that brief encounter they had both shared a human connection that went beyond appearances or social status. As he continued walking home, he thought about the encounter. It was small in the grand scheme of life, but it mattered. He had made a difference in someone's day, and that was enough for him. He didn't know if he would see her again, but something about her lingered in his mind. She had seemed curious, thoughtful, and kind in her own way, despite the pressure of her busy life. Meanwhile, she was driving, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and curiosity. Who was this boy who had just appeared on the side of the road and helped her without hesitation? She kept thinking about his calm demeanor, his gentle humor, and the way he had treated her as a person rather than a wealthy stranger. It was a feeling she couldn't shake, a sense that maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than meetings, money, and appearances. That evening, both of them returned to their separate lives, carrying with them the memory of a brief but meaningful encounter. It was the kind of meeting that could change perspectives, the kind that made people reflect on their own choices and values. And neither of them realized in that moment how significant this encounter would become in the days to follow. It was the beginning of something unexpected, a small act of kindness that might just turn into something much bigger. The next morning, the young boy woke up early as usual. The sun had not yet risen, but he had a long list of tasks for the day. He helped his younger siblings get ready for school, packed breakfast for his family, and made sure everything at home was in order before heading out for work. Life had always been busy for him, but he never complained. He believed that working hard and taking care of the people he loved was more important than resting. Meanwhile, the young woman was having a very different morning. She was surrounded by luxury and convenience, but she felt a strange emptiness inside. She was used to controlling every part of her life, yet yesterday's encounter with the boy lingered in her mind. There was something simple and genuine about him, something she had not experienced in her fast-paced world. As she sipped her coffee, she found herself replaying the conversation, the way he smiled while working and the calm confidence he carried. It was not just admiration. It was a feeling she could not quite name. Later that day, the boy was walking through his neighborhood, carrying some groceries for his family. He took a different route than usual, enjoying the warm sun and the quiet of the streets. Life was simple, and he appreciated these small moments. He didn't know that this same path would lead to an unexpected moment that could change everything. She was driving back from a meeting, feeling a little tired but satisfied with the progress she had made. She had no specific destination in mind and decided to take a slightly longer route home. That was when she saw him again, walking along the sidewalk with his backpack slung over one shoulder and a calm smile on his face. For a moment she hesitated, wondering if she should stop. Impulsively she did. She pulled over and rolled down the window. "Hey," she called out. "Do you remember me?" He looked up surprised, and then recognition lit up his face. "Oh yeah, I remember you. How's your car?" She laughed softly. "Still running perfectly, thanks to you. Can I offer you a ride? It's just up the street, but I thought you might not mind." He hesitated for a moment, unsure about accepting a ride from someone he barely knew. But something about her tone made him feel comfortable. "Sure, thanks," he said, and he walked over to the car. Inside, the atmosphere was quiet at first. She focused on the road while he adjusted the seatbelt and tried to make small conversation without feeling awkward. Finally, she spoke. "I've been thinking about yesterday. You were really kind, and I just wanted to thank you again properly." He shrugged lightly. "It was really nothing. I just saw someone who needed help. Anyone could have done it." She smiled, sensing his humility. Not everyone would have stopped. Most people would have kept driving. He laughed softly, shaking his head. "People get busy. I understand that. But I like to help when I can. It makes the day feel better. She looked at him and realized there was more to him than just a helpful attitude. There was a calm strength in the way he spoke, a sense of responsibility and maturity beyond his years. She found herself curious about his life, about what made him so grounded and kind. "Do you mind if I ask about your life?" she said cautiously. "I mean, what you do every day, your family, your dreams." He glanced at her, slightly surprised but not offended. "Sure, I don't mind sharing. I help my family a lot. I work at a store just to make ends meet. Nothing fancy. But I like to do what I can. My younger siblings look up to me, so I try to set a good example. I guess my dream is just to keep my family happy and safe. Someday maybe I'll get more opportunities, but for now I focus on what I can do." She listened intently, feeling a deep respect for him. His life was not easy, yet he carried himself with dignity and optimism. It was a perspective she rarely saw in her own world, where most people were focused on money, status, and appearances. The conversation continued naturally, flowing from family to school to simple pleasures in life. He told her about small victories at work, funny moments with his siblings, and his plans for the future. She shared stories about her career, the pressures she faced, and the challenges of balancing work and personal life. But unlike her usual interactions, she didn't feel the need to impress him or hide her vulnerabilities. It was refreshing to speak to someone who accepted her without judgment. When they reached his stop, he hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to say goodbye without it feeling awkward. She noticed and smiled warmly. "Thank you for letting me share this ride with you. I really enjoyed talking to you." He smiled back, feeling a warmth he could not explain. "Me too. It's nice to talk without all the usual complications." They parted ways, but both felt a lingering connection. For him, it was a quiet sense of validation, that someone appreciated him for who he was. For her, it was curiosity and a spark of something she had not felt in a long time. A genuine interest in another person, beyond wealth or appearances. The next few days brought small, unexpected encounters. Sometimes she saw him at the corner store, sometimes walking through the park. Each time they exchanged a smile, a brief conversation, and the sense of familiarity grew stronger. She began to notice little details about him. The way he helped others, the patience he showed, the way he carried himself with quiet pride. And he in turn noticed her warmth, her willingness to engage without pretense, and the moments when she let her guard down to laugh genuinely. One afternoon, she decided to approach him with an invitation. "Hey, I was wondering if you'd like to join me for coffee sometime." "Nothing fancy, just a place nearby. I'd like to continue our conversation from the other day." He blinked, slightly surprised but pleased. "I'd like that," he said. "Thank you for asking." They met at a small, cozy cafe. The atmosphere was simple, without the distractions of her busy world or the pressures of his responsibilities. They shared stories about childhood memories, favorite books, and small dreams for the future. She laughed at his jokes, and he smiled at her enthusiasm. Time seemed to pass effortlessly. During their conversation, he shared more about his ambitions, not extravagant ones, but the kind that came from a desire to improve his life and support his family. She listened carefully, admiring the clarity of his values. It was rare to meet someone whose dreams were so grounded yet so meaningful. She shared some of her own ambitions, but in a way that was different from usual. She talked about wanting to make a difference, to find a balance between her career and personal fulfillment. She admitted that sometimes she felt lost despite her success. He listened without judgment, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly heard. As the evening drew near, they realized hours had passed without noticing. It was a natural, easy connection that neither had expected. They parted again with smiles, but this time there was a sense that their lives had intertwined in a meaningful way. Both felt anticipation for the next meeting, a quiet excitement that was different from fleeting attraction or superficial interest. Over the next few weeks, their interactions grew. They shared small walks, casual lunches, and meaningful conversations. She began to see his world, the struggles, the joys, the simple moments that were often overlooked. And he began to see hers, the pressures, the responsibilities, and the rare moments of vulnerability she allowed him to witness. Through these shared moments, a bond formed. It was not based on wealth or social status, but on mutual respect, understanding, and genuine care. Each encounter built trust and familiarity, creating a foundation for something deeper. She admired his character, and he admired her openness and willingness to engage honestly. The boy's simple acts of kindness, his humility, and his grounded nature made a lasting impression on her. She began to realize that the qualities she valued most, honesty, warmth, compassion, were rare in her social circles. And the more time she spent with him, the more she felt drawn to the authenticity he represented. One day, as they sat on a park bench watching the sun set, she turned to him and said quietly, "I'm glad I met you. You've reminded me of things I had forgotten about life. Patience, kindness, and seeing people for who they are, not for what they have." He smiled softly, feeling a warmth he couldn't fully explain. "I'm glad I met you too. You've shown me a different side of life, one that's fast-paced and exciting, but also full of responsibility and care. I feel lucky to know you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. In that moment, neither of them realized that this was the start of a connection that would grow stronger, deeper, and more meaningful with each passing day. What began as a simple act of kindness had blossomed into a genuine bond, rooted in respect, understanding, and the quiet realization that life was richer when shared with someone who truly cared. As the sun disappeared behind the horizon, both felt a sense of hope and anticipation. Their lives, though different in many ways, had intersected in a meaningful and unexpected way, and neither of them knew yet just how significant this meeting would be. Days passed, and the young boy and the millionaire woman began seeing each other more often, though mostly by coincidence. Their encounters started naturally, with smiles, greetings, and short conversations, but slowly these moments grew longer, more meaningful. They discovered they had more in common than they first imagined. While their worlds were very different, their values often aligned. Both cared about honesty, kindness, and living life with purpose. One afternoon, she spotted him at a small community park sitting on a bench and reading a book. She pulled her car over and waved. He looked up, recognition and a warm smile lighting up his face. He waved back and she walked over. "Hey, mind if I sit?" she asked, gesturing to the empty space next to him. "Not at all," he replied, shifting slightly to make room. They started talking casually about the book he was reading, which sparked a discussion about literature and storytelling. The conversation moved naturally from there. She shared some of her favorite childhood books, while he spoke about the stories that inspired him to dream big despite challenges. As they talked, he noticed her openness. She was genuinely interested in his thoughts, and her laughter was warm and unpretentious. He had met many people in his life, but few listened with such care as if each word mattered. It made him feel valued, seen beyond his background and circumstances. In turn, she began to see the beauty of his perspective on life. While she often surrounded herself with people who admired her wealth or status, he focused on what really mattered: character, empathy, and connection. His world was simpler, yet richer in ways she rarely experienced in her own fast-paced life. They started walking together, exploring the park. The boy pointed out little things: flowers, the way sunlight filtered through the trees, a small squirrel chasing another through the grass. He found joy in the ordinary, teaching her to notice details she had overlooked for years. She realized how much she had been missing, always focused on the next meeting, the next achievement, the next goal. "You notice everything," she said with a smile. "I think I've been rushing through life without really seeing it." He chuckled. "Sometimes it takes someone else to show you. We all get caught up in our own pace." Their conversation shifted to personal dreams. He shared his aspirations for furthering his education, improving his family's life, and making a positive impact in his community. His dreams were not extravagant or superficial, but they carried a sense of purpose and responsibility. She shared her own ambitions, how she wanted to grow her business, create meaningful projects, and help people, but admitted that she often felt overwhelmed and disconnected from what truly mattered. He smiled softly. "I care about you too." That's why it mattered. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the park, she realized she was enjoying his company more than she expected. His presence was calming, reassuring, and yet invigorating. It was a rare balance she had never experienced before. They laughed at small jokes, shared stories, and even talked about silly childhood memories, feeling like old friends despite having just met. Over the next few weeks, their friendship deepened. They met more intentionally, sharing meals at small local cafes, exploring quiet streets, and sometimes simply sitting together in parks or by the river. Every meeting was simple yet meaningful. They were learning about each other in small ways, discovering shared values, humor, and outlooks on life. She began to see him not just as someone who helped her with a flat tire, but as a person whose perspective and integrity had a lasting impact. He was someone who did not judge, who gave freely of his time and energy, and who found joy in helping others. His humility, kindness, and grounded nature fascinated her. For him, spending time with her offered a glimpse into a different world. It was fast-paced, full of responsibility and luxury, but also full of challenges she had to navigate. He admired her strength, determination, and vulnerability when she shared her struggles. He saw the human side behind the wealth and status, a person who could feel doubt, fear, and hope just like anyone else. One evening, they attended a small local charity event together. She had invited him, wanting him to experience part of her world, but in a setting that felt genuine and unpretentious. He observed her as she interacted with guests, handled challenges gracefully, and showed genuine concern for the cause. He realized that despite her fast-paced life and pressures, she had a heart that wanted to make a difference. He quietly admired her for that. During the event, they found a quiet corner and shared a conversation about life, purpose, and the people who inspired them. She confided in him about her fears of being alone despite her success, and he spoke of his hope to build a better future for his family and himself. There was a shared understanding in their words, a mutual recognition of struggles, dreams, and humanity. Afterward, they walked home together, the city lights twinkling around them. The boy noticed how her expression softened when she talked about things that mattered to her. He realized that beneath her confident exterior, she carried a desire to connect, to find someone who would see her for who she really was. And he in turn felt his own heart warming with a sense of trust and familiarity he had rarely experienced. Their bond grew through small gestures and shared moments. A helping hand with groceries, a spontaneous visit to a local bookstore, or simply sitting together in quiet reflection. She began to trust him deeply, appreciating his honesty and the ease with which he made her feel comfortable. He too found a rare sense of companionship and understanding that filled a part of his life he hadn't even realized was empty. One afternoon, while sitting by a fountain, she looked at him and said softly, "You have this way of making life feel simpler, calmer. I don't know how to explain it, but being with you makes things feel right." He looked at her, a quiet smile spreading across his face. "I think it's because we're both just being ourselves. No pretenses, no pressure, just honest conversation and time spent together. That's what matters." She nodded, realizing he was right. In his presence, she didn't need to impress anyone or maintain a facade. She could simply be herself. It was a revelation she had not expected, and it made her feel a warmth that went beyond friendship. As the days turned into weeks, they continued to share experiences that strengthened their connection. Simple walks, shared meals, and heartfelt conversations became part of their routine. Each meeting reinforced their trust and admiration for one another. They began to confide in each other about personal challenges, fears, and hopes. She shared her struggles with pressure and expectations, and he shared the challenges of balancing work, family, and dreams. Despite the differences in their social worlds, they found common ground in their values and perspectives. They respected each other's lives, choices, and ambitions, creating a bond that felt both deep and natural. It was a connection built on understanding, care, and the quiet realization that they complemented each other in ways neither had expected. One evening, as they walked along a quiet street lined with trees, she took a deep breath and said, "I think I've learned more from you in the past few weeks than I have in years. You see the world in a way I rarely do, and it's refreshing." He smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I've learned from you too. Your determination, your perspective, and the way you care, it's inspiring. It makes me want to be better, to see the bigger picture." They walked in silence for a while, enjoying the calm of the evening and the comfort of each other's company. It was a quiet, unspoken understanding that their connection had grown beyond simple friendship. There was a sense of anticipation, a subtle awareness that something more meaningful was developing. As they reached the corner where they usually parted ways, she turned to him and said softly, "I'm glad I met you. You've made me see life differently, and I appreciate that more than I can say." He looked at her, his heart warming at her words. "I'm glad I met you too. You've brought a new perspective to my life, and I feel lucky to know you." They exchanged a quiet smile and parted ways for the evening, both carrying a sense of anticipation and excitement. The connection between them had grown stronger, built on shared values, understanding, and the realization that their differences in social worlds did not matter as much as the genuine bond they were forming. This was the stage where friendship began to deepen into something more, a relationship rooted in respect, trust, and authentic connection. Both felt that their lives were richer because of the other's presence, and neither knew yet just how far this bond would take them. It was the beginning of a journey that promised growth, understanding, and perhaps a love neither had expected but were slowly discovering together. A common shaping their futures, hearts, and the journey they were about to take together. As their bond grew stronger, the young boy and the millionaire woman began spending more time together. They were aware of the differences in their worlds, but it never seemed to matter when they were together. The simplicity of his life balanced the complexity of hers, and the honesty and care in their interactions made both of them feel seen and appreciated. But as their connection deepened, small challenges started to appear, quietly testing the strength of their relationship. One day, she invited him to a formal gathering she had to attend. It was a networking event for her business, filled with influential people and important conversations. He had never been in such an environment before, and he felt nervous as they walked in together. She held his hand gently, sensing his anxiety, and whispered, "Just be yourself. That's all anyone needs to see." He nodded, but the feeling of being out of place was strong. People stared as they walked past, curious about the young man with her. Some whispered, and others made small gestures that clearly indicated judgment. He felt a surge of self-consciousness, questioning whether he belonged in this world at all. She noticed his discomfort, and it tugged at her heart. She wanted to reassure him, but the pressure of her own surroundings made it hard to find the right moment. During the event, she tried to include him in conversations, introducing him to some people. He answered politely but kept things brief, feeling the weight of expectations he had never faced before. He realized that his simple, humble background was so different from the environment she navigated daily. Even though he wanted to stay confident, he could not ignore the nervousness bubbling inside. He felt like he was being judged for something he could not change, the life he had grown up with. Later, while they stepped outside to get some fresh air, a brief argument started, not between them but because of assumptions made by others. Someone she knew quietly suggested that he might be more interested in her money than her, and she overheard the comment. Though she did not believe it, the thought lingered in her mind, causing a flicker of doubt. She wondered if the world around her would ever accept their bond, and whether her feelings were too complicated to navigate publicly. The boy noticed her thoughtful expression and asked gently, "Is everything okay?" She hesitated, then said, Sometimes I worry about what others think, about how different our lives are." He reached out and held her hand. "People will always have opinions. We can't control that. All that matters is what we feel and how we treat each other." She smiled faintly, appreciating his words, but the pressure of her world still weighed on her. They walked back inside, trying to enjoy the rest of the evening, but the unease lingered. The event ended and they returned home quietly, both lost in their thoughts. He worried about being judged and whether he was enough for someone like her, while she worried about balancing her social expectations with her heart. A few days later, a small misunderstanding tested their trust. She had sent him a message asking if he could meet at a cafe, but he had been caught up with family responsibilities and did not reply immediately. She assumed he was ignoring her, and a feeling of hurt arose. She questioned if he valued their relationship as much as she did. When they finally met, the tension was noticeable. She tried to speak first, but he gently said, "I'm sorry I didn't reply sooner. Things got busy, and I didn't want to rush our time together." "I hope you understand." She paused, realizing she had jumped to conclusions, and nodded. "I understand. I guess I overreacted. I care about you a lot, and sometimes I let my fears get the best of me." Ours to me to explain. We can't always control how life happens, but we can control how we communicate. The conversation helped clear the air, but it reminded them both that their differences would sometimes create challenges. The world around them would not always understand, and their own fears and insecurities could get in the way. They realized that trust, honesty, and patience would be crucial in navigating their growing bond. Over the next few weeks, they encountered other subtle pressures. Friends and family sometimes expressed concern or skepticism, questioning whether their relationship could work, given their different backgrounds. While these comments were never malicious, they introduced doubt and required both of them to confront their own assumptions and insecurities. Each time they had to remind themselves of why they connected in the first place: mutual respect, understanding, and genuine care. One evening, they took a walk by the river. The water reflected the city lights, creating a calming glow. She spoke quietly. "I feel like sometimes the world doesn't understand us. People judge us before they know us." He nodded, taking her hand in his. "Let them judge. We know the truth, and that's enough. We have each other. That's what matters," she smiled, feeling the weight of her worries lighten. "You make it so simple. Sometimes I forget that life doesn't have to be so complicated." He squeezed her hand gently. "Complicated or not, we'll face it together. Life has challenges, but we can handle them. We just need to trust each other." They continued walking, speaking about their dreams, fears, and hopes. These moments reminded them that despite the challenges, their bond was strong and worth nurturing. They began to see obstacles not as reasons to doubt, but as opportunities to grow closer, to strengthen their trust and understanding. The boy's humility and grounded nature continued to anchor her, while her openness and determination inspired him. They learned to communicate more clearly, to share their feelings honestly, and to support each other when doubts arose. Misunderstandings became lessons, and challenges became opportunities to reinforce their connection. One day, she invited him to visit her workplace. He was nervous, unsure how he would fit in, but he wanted to share a part of his life with her. As he walked through the offices, he noticed the respect she commanded, the way she managed her team, and the passion she had for her work. He felt proud of her, and she felt proud of him for facing his fears and coming into her world with confidence and humility. They spent the afternoon discussing projects, sharing ideas, and finding common ground in their perspectives. She realized that despite the difference in their social worlds, they could collaborate, learn from each other, and support one another's growth. He saw that her success did not define her entirely, and her willingness to share it with him made him feel valued and trusted. As the day ended, they walked together to a quiet spot overlooking the city. The lights twinkled below, reflecting in her thoughtful eyes. She turned to him and said softly, "Even with all the challenges, I'm glad we didn't let anything stop us." "I feel closer to you every day," he smiled, feeling the truth of her words. "And I feel the same. No matter what happens around us, we have this, our bond, our trust, our understanding. That's what matters." The evening ended with a quiet embrace, a reaffirmation that despite misunderstandings, social pressures, and personal insecurities, their connection remained strong. They both understood that challenges were part of life, but facing them together made them stronger. The experience taught them patience, empathy, and the importance of open communication. Through these moments, they discovered that love and friendship were not always easy. They required effort, understanding, and the willingness to navigate difficulties together. Yet each challenge they faced strengthened their relationship, proving that their bond was built on more than attraction. It was grounded in mutual respect, trust, and genuine care. As they parted that night, both carried a sense of hope and reassurance. They knew that life would continue to present obstacles, but they also knew that together they could face anything. The lessons they learned during these challenging moments became the foundation for a deeper, more resilient connection. It was a bond that could weather misunderstandings, social pressures, and time passed, and the young boy and the millionaire woman grew closer with each shared moment. The challenges they faced had only strengthened their bond, proving that their connection was based on trust, respect, and genuine understanding. They had learned how to communicate openly, support one another through fears and insecurities, and appreciate the unique qualities that each brought to the relationship. One sunny afternoon, she invited him to a small community garden she had been supporting as part of a charitable project. She wanted him to see the way she tried to use her resources to help others in meaningful ways. He had always admired her kindness from a distance, but being part of her efforts gave him a new perspective. He noticed the care she put into even small details, speaking warmly to volunteers and making sure everyone felt included and appreciated. He felt proud of her, but she noticed the quiet admiration in his eyes and smiled. She had always assumed people would judge her for her wealth, but with him, She saw appreciation and respect for her character rather than her money. That alone made her feel understood and valued in a way she had rarely experienced. They spent the afternoon planting flowers, cleaning up paths, and organizing small projects for the garden. He found joy in the work, appreciating the satisfaction of helping others and making the space beautiful. She watched him interact with the volunteers and neighbors, noticing his kindness, patience, and gentle humor. She felt a growing affection for him, realizing that his character and heart were far more important than any social expectation. As the sun began to set, they took a quiet moment to sit on a bench and enjoy the view of the garden. The air was warm, and the fading light created a peaceful glow. She turned to him and said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about how far we've come and how much we've shared. I feel like I've learned so much from you about life, kindness, and patience." He looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "I feel the same. You've shown me parts of life I never knew existed, and you've made me feel valued for who I am. That's something rare and special." She reached for his hand, holding it gently. "I want us to continue this journey together. No matter what happens, I want to face life with you by my side." He squeezed her hand, feeling a warmth he could hardly put into words. "I want that too. We've faced challenges and we've grown closer because of them. I believe in us." From that moment, their relationship took on a new depth. They started planning small adventures together, exploring parts of the city and nearby towns that they had never seen before. They shared meals at local diners, visited markets, and even attended community events, finding joy in simple experiences that strengthened their connection. Each moment reinforced their understanding, trust, and care for one another. They also continued to support each other in personal growth. He encouraged her to take breaks from her busy life and focus on what truly mattered, while she helped him pursue opportunities for education and personal development. Together, they celebrated small victories, laughed at minor setbacks, and shared dreams for the future. One evening, as they watched the city skyline from a quiet rooftop, she turned to him and said, "I never imagined I could feel this kind of connection. It's not about wealth or status. It's about understanding, trust, and care. You've shown me that." He smiled, feeling a sense of calm contentment. "And you've shown me that success isn't just about money or recognition. It's about making a difference and being kind. We both bring something valuable to each other's lives." Their days became filled with small gestures of love and care. He would bring her coffee in the mornings, and she would leave small notes of encouragement for him. They laughed together over shared jokes, comforted each other during moments of stress, and quietly celebrated the depth of their bond. Their relationship became a source of strength, inspiration, and joy for both of them. As months passed, their bond only grew stronger. Friends and family who had once been skeptical began to see the genuine care and respect they shared. They realized that despite their differences, the connection was real, deep, and lasting. The couple became an example of how love and understanding could transcend social expectations and backgrounds. One memorable day, they volunteered together at a local shelter. He admired her compassion, her ability to engage with people from all walks of life, and her dedication to making a positive impact. She in turn admired his humility, kindness, and the quiet strength he carried in every action. Working side by side, they realized that their shared values and mutual respect made them an even stronger team.